brought into being by the Uzumaki Hyuga blood that flows within you. That's not the important part, that's just a setup. Here's the problem. Well, since it's already happened, the how doesn't matter. Yes, it does. It does to the reader. Doesn't matter to you, Kurama. But that the reason why it aggravates me, though, is because they've said this. Are they just gonna not explain how?
So if we're getting into this, I will say the only part about this that I can justify is that this would be in character for Kurama to say something like this at this moment.
Correct. And there's nothing wrong with Kurama saying it. The problem is that they do need to figure out how it happened. Because if you don't, because that's like, imagine that they just start doing that as a general thing. They start to just write in whatever, and they just say, it doesn't matter how.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about this actually a few minutes ago, funny enough. So what if, I can imagine in like a few chapters or whatever, whenever we get the Jura reveal of what the Shinjuu are, if Jura's like, well, I don't know how I came into being, but it doesn't really matter how. The fact of the matter is that I'm here now. We just never get an explanation. Like, the best thing we have to go off of is like Boruto's theory, or like when they first awoken, what they were saying that, I was awoken based on like the ego. It's like, that's it. That's the only thing. They just never explain anything at all. I can imagine them doing that.
That's why I don't like them including a line like that, because it's just so scary. Like, are you just gonna do that?
So I was talking to Mr. Spiraling earlier today about this line in particular, or at least the concept of it. I think what they're doing, and I'm sure you can agree with me, and this is what I thought the moment the spoilers came out and I read this, they are very clearly addressing it without addressing it on purpose. They're getting it out of the way so the audience doesn't have to wonder. We're going to keep wondering anyways. But the point is, they're leaving it up to our own interpretation because, like they say, the how doesn't matter. And I think from the story perspective, that's fine. If this isn't going to be relevant in the story, they don't need to address it. And I'm glad that they're bringing it up to tell us that they're not going to address it. But I still would rather them address it so that we have one clear-cut answer, instead of them just giving a couple possibilities that might be it, and just leaving the audience to just guess which one it is, assuming it's even one of those in the first place.
Yeah, and it's just like, from a story perspective, it could matter depending on how they want to approach it, but it likely doesn't inherently matter. But I do think from a plot perspective, it just always matters. I just feel like it's bad plot if it's not explained.
It's bad for the fans, because it's like there's two ways of thinking about it. The first way is they're just like, shut up, don't even think about it, who cares? That'd be awful if that's the case. The second way is they're giving it to the fans to have a discussion about it where they know they're never going to address it. But it's like basically for the YouTubers, basically just throwing a bone to them so they have something to talk about forever.
But that's like bad because but you can't, because you don't get the answer. I mean, I do want to talk about the possibilities he presents, but like, just before we get there, it's just like, I think if they address it later, this is a totally fine line. In fact, I think it's objectively good if Kurama, I like the line from Kurama.
Yeah.
So long as a character explains it at some point. Where it's a discovery. Maybe Yamato just figures it out. Maybe Konosuke figures it out. Maybe Juro figures it out. It doesn't really matter who. The point is, it only gets figured out.
Because I feel like this entire panel isn't even written for Himawari. It's written directly to the audience. This is Kishimoto saying, well, since it's already happened, the how doesn't matter. What's most important is accepting the circumstances and moving forward. So Kishimoto is telling the audience, we're not going to linger on this because I don't care. The fact of the matter is just he's here now. Yeah. I don't need it to make sense because it's just what we're going to do anyways. This goes back to what we were talking about with the Kaguya fillers. The less they explain, the less they need to explain, which is not true, but like, it's like the downward spiral of an excuse to where it doesn't need to make sense as long as they don't explain it.